These girls are vicious. You ever see a bunch of 8-year-old girls? They can be vicious athletes.
Yeah.
This is like full contact soccer. Right. So we are going to do a new segment here, and we're going to call this Stirring It Up. So stirring it up is a phrase that used to be, we used to use when somebody like was causing a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
And so I was sharing off screen with Jesse about an interesting thing this past weekend. I got to go watch my 8-year-old granddaughter play soccer. Now, I'm not a big soccer fan, and I do admire the athleticism, the having to run up and down the field, and like running does not excite me at all, unless there's like an ice cream truck involved. And then he drove past the house, but now I can just drive to the store and get the ice cream. But anyway, so these girls are vicious. You ever see a bunch of 8-year-old girls? They can be vicious athletes.
Yeah.
This is like full contact soccer. Like, I don't know why they didn't, like, what do they call them, yellow card? Yeah. I don't know why they didn't call a penalty on my granddaughter for tackling that other girl. But, like, they were just all up in each other's faces. They're kicking, they're shoving each other over the ball, and breathing all over each other. And it's just very much full-on contact sport. And so,
as it should be.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way it should be. But at the end of the game, when the winners losers go out and shake hands, they didn't shake hands. They waved at each other from across the field because COVID. And so I just laughed about it because there's so much that's going on with this stuff that's just really absurd to me. It's absurd. And I just wanted to know what you thought about it.
I think a lot of things.
Yeah,
I think a lot of things.
That's called a setup. I know he thinks a lot of things.
Yeah, he knows. He knows what I think. And before I go into my response or my thoughts on it, I do want to preface, we've had a lot of conversation about this show. I'm a very opinionated person. I think most of us are. We've had some
strong opinions.
Very strong opinions, and we've agreed, and I have complied and said I will not bring in too much political talk. I listen to a lot of politics. I have very strong opinions, but we wanted this to be very light, a show that you can watch and listen to where you can almost for 45 minutes to an hour forget.
Just feel good
about all of the storm that is our society. So I want to preface this and say, listen, I'm not going to get too political, and what I would like is for you to not get too political in the comments. We want to hear what you think, but we also don't want to get into this dissent and anger and hatred. So we want your opinion, but please be respectful, as I try to be respectful about my very strong opinion about this topic. So there's the disclaimer. Now let me take the gloves off a little bit.
All right.
This is absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
Listen, whether you believe in the masks or the vaccines or the precautions, if we're going to take any of this seriously, we must take it seriously all the time.
Right.
Right. And I'll just use me as a diabetic. If I want to take my health seriously, to say that I'm going to take my health seriously is to take it seriously all the time.
Right.
To take these precautions or these guidelines or these standards and say you can be all over each other playing the sport, but then you can't shake hands afterwards because of COVID is absolutely...
You do that like COVID's not real. COVID is real.
It's real.
Yes. You can't do air quotes unless that means it's not real.
Well, because I don't think it's actually because of COVID. But we won't get... Right. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Right. I don't think that the reason we're not shaking hands is because of actual COVID. Because if we took it seriously, if we took real COVID seriously, then we wouldn't be playing soccer all over each other.
Right.
Right. If we really took it seriously, we wouldn't be shopping in crowded stores. Everything would be delivered. So what's frustrated me the most, one of the things that's frustrated me most, lots frustrated me lately, is that organizations or groups that claim to take this that take the coronavirus seriously, but then they don't act in accordance with that if it costs them too much money, or if it would make it them obsolete, right? You have, stores that have a greeter. I'll get there. But just the having to stand across, if you're going to have people breathing on each other and playing this sport that's a high contact, close proximity, close quarter sport, then you can stink and shake hands after the game.
You would think.
Because other than that, it is just theater. Right. Other than that, if they said, listen, we're not doing soccer anymore, or you have to wear a mask at all times, if that's what you believe works, you have to wear a mask while you're playing soccer. It has to be an N95 that actually blocks everything out. And there's going to be all these actual precautions, and they're taken seriously all the time.
Right.
And so when I see stuff like that, my knee-jerk reaction, and maybe this is my youthful arrogance coming in, my knee-jerk reaction is to fight against every single bit of that. So, for example, do you want to say something before I go into my for example? Okay. Okay. You sure?
Right now, okay. I'm good.
So, at a grocery store, fairly locally to here, they have one entrance. So it's one grocery store that we shop at is going under renovation, and now they have one entrance and exit. It's in the middle of the store, right on top of each other.
Right.
They have normally a high school student postured at the door with face masks, and their entire job that they get paid probably $8, $10, $12 an hour, minimum wage, whatever it is to tell people that they must wear a mask. Now, unless I am directly asked and required to, will not. I just won't do it. We'll get there maybe another day. But I'm also not going to be disrespectful. I'm not going to be rude to someone who's paid to do this. But when I walk in, I just keep walking unless they flag me down. So we walked into the store, and I heard the guy, as I'm 20 feet away almost, "Sir, I have a mask for you." And I was kind of sure he was talking to me, but you never know. So I just kept walking. No one said anything. I shopped, bought my stuff, left. As we're leaving, we're going past, and now it's not the same guy. It's a young lady, probably 16, 17 years old. And we're walking out, and this older gentleman's walking in with no mask. And we are literally probably 5 feet in front of her, walking in front of her. And she says, "Sir, I have a mask for you. Sir, I have a mask for you." As quietly as she possibly could. And he just kept walking because honestly, I barely heard her. He probably actually didn't hear her.
Right.
All that is a sign that they're not really taking it seriously.
Actually.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a sign that we've got a bunch of 16-year-olds that don't know how to project. And that
True.
There's a communication thing. Have you ever given your order at a fast food restaurant and you can't make out what they're saying to you? So I think that's a projection issue, a confidence issue, and things like that. My take on masks and stuff like that are, this is my house. We're recording not at an actual coffee shop. This is my house in my basement.
Yeah. And
this is a
green screen?
This is a green screen. Yes.
You got a fun story about that after this.
So anyway, the in our home, we have certain rules.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of rules. But one of the rules is not that you have to take your shoes off when you come in the door. People are always trying to take their shoes off, but we don't care. I mean, we can vacuum, we can mop, whatever. But if my rule was, hey, we ask you to take your shoes off when you come into the door, then my expectation is that when you come into the house that you'll either take your shoes off or you will decide that you don't want to come visit. And so I think that's a lot of my problem with masks is really people's responses.
Yeah.
It's either you're a sheep if you wear a mask, you're a monster if you don't wear a mask, you're a jerk if you have an opinion that's different than my opinion, right, and those kinds of things. And that can take us into a whole different conversation. Maybe we'll get there one day. But if I see the sign on the door and they're saying, hey, this is a requirement, wear the mask, I'll wear the mask when I go in. I have thoughts about it. I don't understand why while I'm sitting down, drinking my coffee or eating my meal, I'm safe. but as soon as I stand up, I'm not safe anymore because the mask has to go back on. I don't know that. I walked into the coffee shop the other day and I commented to the owner that how good that coffee smelled, and that was with a mask on. And I was wondering, if I could smell the coffee, then if the scent that was bringing the coffee in, if I could smell that, is that stopping anything? And most of those masks, they actually have on the labels that's not going to stop, not preventing any. So there's so much about it, but it's, again, above my pay grade. I just look at things according to, let's have some civil discourse about it.
Yeah.
And let's be respectful of one another's opinions.
Yeah.
And let's also be respectful of people's house rules.
Right.
That's really all but I just thought it was strange at the soccer game that they could be all over each other. Yeah. Wrestling's the same way. They had made the announcement for wrestlers that you can wrestle, you can be all sweaty all over the other fella, but you can't shake hands before and after the match because, the plague. Yeah. And so it's really, that's the inconsistency is the thing that really gets me. And I think is what you were saying.
Yeah. Because, we'll talk about two companies. I mean, neither good nor bad on either of them, but they're in the same sphere. If you look at Menards and Lowe's, from the beginning, they've kind of had opposite stances. Menards from the beginning has said, you wear a mask in our store or you won't shop here.
Right.
And they were very firm and very consistent, and they have been the entire time.
Right.
Lowe's said, listen, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't. It is what it is. And I actually have a kind of weird respect, though personally I disagree with the Menards stance. I have a lot of respect for the organization because they took the stance and they were serious about it.
Right.
They at least, I disagree, but at least they were consistent and they said, listen, no, this is our stance. We're sticking to it.
Right.
And so for me, and I like the house example. For me, now if you cared about the house rule, take your shoes off. If I walked in and let's say I forgot, or today's like the first time I haven't taken my shoes off in Dwayne's house. I was raised right, okay? My mom always told me take your shoes off in other people's house. Today I'm wearing boots and we just started.
That's a process.
But normally I take my shoes off. Now, if I walked in and forgot, or I didn't see the sign, or I was busy, if it were important to you, you say, hey, I'm sorry, could take your shoes off, right?
Right.
If it mattered to you. Now, if I didn't, if I said, oh yeah, sorry, Dwayne, say I was busy, and I got halfway in your house, you'd say, no. Stop. Take your shoes off, please. Now, if that were the product, if I walk into the other grocery store, and they say, sir, can you wear a mask? And then there's no more discussion. I buy my stuff and I leave. Well, then it's a rule without a consequence, right?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I disagree with you on that one. The rule is the rule. Whether the owner isn't there to enforce it himself, he can only rely on his employees to do it. And so that's that's what their preference is that you do it. I just believe that we should prefer one another to ourselves, and if it's another person's, and in this instance, I look at a business as, the owner of that store or the shareholders have made a decision that's best for them. Whether we agree with them or don't agree with them, it's their call. And so I respect them enough to know, or respect them enough to say, well, I'm going to prefer you to myself. I don't want to wear this, but this isn't my store. If I had my own store, then I would make my own rules, but this is yours. They're the ones that are paying all the bills. They're the ones that are putting, that are taking all of the risk of having the business. They're the ones that, are losing sleep over making these decisions. And they don't need another schmuck like myself coming in and giving them opinions on how they need to make all of their policies and procedures. But that's just this guy's opinion.
What if the mayor of this town told all the citizens, hey, when someone comes into your house, you have to make them take their shoes off, but you don't care.
But it's different because it's my house. So that's the difference.
Right.
It's my house.
If you care.
Yeah.
So, but what if the mayor says, hey, if anyone's in any of your guys' house, they're supposed to take their shoes off, but you don't care.
Right.
And someone walks into your house without their shoes on.
Right.
Or with their shoes on.
Well, that we're talking about the mayor, and we're use apples and oranges.
Well, but a lot of these places weren't requiring the masks until
but then they
said you have to.
Yeah, but they could have thought that. They could have decided they weren't going to enforce that in their stores. They didn't have to put the signs on their doors. They did.
My understanding was that they did.
Okay, so they did it though. They complied, and if they were complying, then it's on us, I think, to comply in that sense in a private entity. In my house, it's my rules, and I'll do what I want.
Right.
And if the government, just like in my house, if the government told me people have to wear a mask in my house, or you can't worship in your house. We're seeing that in Canada, whatever. I'm going to do what according to my conscience is. The problem that I see with a lot of people isn't that they just do according to their conscience. They have to project to everybody what they're going to do with to their conscience. I remember when the shutdowns were happening, when at the very beginning, and people were told not to go to church. And I wanted to go to church, and I will go to church. And we had church here at the house, whatever, and those kinds of things. But when our church opened, I just went. Yeah. I didn't make a big announcement and big production about it. But I saw so many people that were like, "I'm going to church. I dare you to stop me." Yeah. Now you're just asking for controversy.
Now you're asking for a fight.
You're asking for a fight, and that's where we run into problems is when we're just looking for a fight. I'm not looking for a fight. I just want to live my life, and so we have this thing about do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Respect other people and their rights and their property and those kinds of things. And that's really my take on pretty much anything that's political. And maybe we'll talk some more later on. But I have a lot of opinions. People think I don't have opinions. I do. I just measure out where I'm going to share it. Yeah. Where does it make sense? Do I need to throw everything that I think just because I think it? Don't mean I have to say it.
Yeah. I tweet, therefore I am.
Right. Yeah. Right. So there's no reason for me to tell. Does everybody care about every opinion that I've got? They don't. And do I want to alienate half of my customer base or my potential customers? I don't. So there's things that are important to me that I'll share with my friend, my close circle. Or if it's a total stranger and we're having a one-on-one conversation and we can have a dialogue about it, I'll share it. But I don't need to get a megaphone and tell everybody. I don't need to write everything I think on a sign and hold it up. Is it our right to do it? Sure. But do we have to do something? There's one of my favorite books says something about all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient, meaning that just because something's allowable doesn't mean it's necessary for you to do it.
Right. So. And full disclaimer, if someone were to come up to me in the midst of my shopping and say, "Hey, sir, you have to put on a mask," I'm not arguing. Right. I will. I mean, my thing is I'm just not going to unless I have to. And then I would never argue because, again, it's not that person. Right. But so I just want to make that clear. Like, I'm not one of the guys that I'm like, I'm not wearing a mask. In my head, I say that. Right. But if I go somewhere and someone of that store says, "Hey, sir, I'm sorry, you really have to wear a mask." Okay, whatever.
It's either that or you choose not to shop.
Yeah, and so I do want to preface that. I mean, with all my opinions kind of aside, there is still a practicality of like, well, gotta live, gotta shop. I also don't own the store. Right. And if there's a small family-owned store that says, "Hey, no masks," I'd gladly take my business there maybe, but so I just wanted to preface that, I'm like, I'm stirring stuff up, but there is a level of like, it's not, if someone says, "Hey, you're not going to be allowed to buy your groceries if you don't do the thing," I'll do the thing, I'll do the dumb thing. So,
okay, well, welcome to this episode of Stirring It Up.
Let us know what you think, respectfully.
Hey, this has been Coffee with Dwayne and Jesse. I'm Dwayne.
I'm Jesse.
Be well.
Do good. Drink good coffee.